Are you ready to buy a home? Well, don't let these hidden costs catch you off guard. Buying a home is one of the biggest investments you'll ever make. And it's not just about the purchase price that you need to consider. There's a lot of fees that go along with buying a home that we don't think about. And today we'll explore these costs so you can plan ahead and be prepared for that purchase. To learn more about real estate and investments and everything in between, like and subscribe to my channel, as I will post weekly videos that help you succeed. And stick around to the end of the video while I share 2 expenses you probably didn't budget for when considering purchasing a home. So you found an amazing real estate agent to work with, you've been looking for properties for a while, and now you find the perfect one. What do the expenses entail? How much is it going to cost to close on this property? And today I'm going to break that down in detail so you know exactly what you're responsible for when the time comes. When you have the accepted offer on the property, you're likely going to write an offer that's subject to certain conditions, whether that be financing, inspection, title review, and other various things depending on where the property is. Some specialty conditions that you may also consider might be maybe an oil tank scan if it's an older property. Back in the day, they used to bury oil tanks. Maybe it's some asbestos testing. There's a whole bunch of different things, and that's really dependent on the area that you're in and having an expert real estate agent that knows exactly what conditions to consider when purchasing a home. The first cost that you will want to consider is a home inspection. Now, you've got an accepted offer on the property. The next step is to go through all the due diligence and make sure that the property meets your needs prior to removing conditions and effectively buying the property. Depending on the area you live in, and of course the size of the home, you want to bank for somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 to $1,000 for a qualified professional to come in and inspect the home. Now, this is going to be in that 3,000 to 4,000 square foot maximum. Now, if you're buying a 10,000 square foot home, expect to spend more money on an inspection. As I mentioned before, specialty inspections, you may also want to consider perimeter drain inspection, septic field inspection, perhaps a roof inspection. Some trades will actually come and give you an inspection for free, like a roofer, because they know if the roof does need to be done, that likely they're going to earn your business. So you could call around and see who's available to help you with that, and that might save you some money, but at the end of the day, you should be prepared to pay for those expenses. When you get a septic inspection, typically you will negotiate that the seller will have the tank pumped out prior to inspection. This allows your inspector to go in there, check the tank, make sure that everything's working properly. You're usually looking at around $500 to $750 to have a septic tank inspected. Now, if the house is on sewer, of course, you don't need to worry about that. But if it's on septic, I would highly recommend that you have your septic field inspected. If it's an older system, such as a gravity system, they can actually send a camera up and check all the pipes and make sure everything's working. If it's a newer, updated, what they call a pressure field, they're actually a smaller diameter pipe, and they can't inspect the field with a camera. All they can do is check the pump and make sure that that's working. Still really important, because a grinder pump can be in the neighborhood of $1,200 to $1,500. So spending $500 to have it all inspected is money well spent. Now you've gone through all the required inspections. Everything seems to be checking out on the property. Next, you need to look at insurance. You're going to need insurance for the home in order to satisfy the requirements for your lender. The lender is not going to give you a mortgage on the home unless it's insured. So what you need to do is get a quote for insurance to make sure that the property can be insured. Otherwise, you're in deep water. I always suggest to find out who the insurance provider is currently on the home, because that's the easiest way to get a quote and get a binder in place to make sure that you can satisfy that condition. Of course, insurance can be subjective. It depends on how much the house is worth, how much the replacement value is on it, how many times you've had any insurance claims on your property, and then of course the size of the home and everything else. I'm in Victoria, BC, and the cost for insurance on my home is about $3,000 a year with earthquake insurance. If I was to drop that earthquake rider, I would be looking at in the neighborhoods about $1,200 to $1,500 a year. It's going to vary depending on where you are, but it's really important to know exactly what the insurance is going to cost you so you can factor that in your monthly costs. Another expense that people often don't think about is an appraisal fee. If your lender or the bank requires an appraisal on the property to make sure that they'll give you a mortgage, they might actually charge you a fee. Typically, you're looking at $300 to $500 and it'll just be added onto your mortgage. But at the end of the day, it's still an expense that a lot of people don't think about. In order to complete a real estate transaction, you need a lawyer to help you with all the land transfer and all the documents. I would suggest that you allot for $1,000 to $1,500 for a lawyer to help you with that paperwork. You also want to have the title reviewed prior to removing those conditions, especially if there's things on title like covenants or restrictions or things like that. You want to make sure that you have a professional take a look at it and explain to you exactly what's going on so you can make an informed decision before you remove your conditions. Okay, so you've made it this far. You've paid for your inspection, you've had the title reviewed, you've got an insurance quote so you know what it's worth, and you've done all the other inspections that need to be done. Next, we're going to remove conditions. So when we remove conditions, we now have closing costs. Now, these are going to be at the end when you actually complete on it and take possession of the home, but it's very important to know what these costs are and make sure that you bank for them. Depending on what province you're in, it's going to vary and change, but because I'm in British Columbia, I'll speak directly to that. What we have in British Columbia is called property transfer tax. This tax is at a rate of 1% for the first 200,000, 2% from 200,000 to 2 million, and 3% on anything 2 million and above. Now, this is on the fair market value or purchase price of your home. Now, there is some exceptions to the property transfer tax, such as first-time home buyers. You get a small exemption on the cost of the property transfer tax, and there's also some exemptions for newly built homes. I've left the link to the province of British Columbia's website on this in the description below, so you can check it out and see if you're exempt. And if you have any questions, you can always leave a comment and I'm happy to give you some answers. Now that you're nearing completion on the property, this is when all these fees become relevant. You need to pay your property transfer tax on completion. Now, it can't get added to your mortgage. You have to pay it cash along with your down payment on your mortgage. Depending on your mortgage provider, you could be looking at anywhere from 5% all the way up to 20%. If you're putting down under 20%, you have to pay for what's called CMHC insurance. This is insurance for the lender in case you default on the mortgage. They know that they're covered and that they're going to get paid. Now, CMHC fees can get added to the principal of your mortgage, but the down payment, property transfer tax, as well as lawyer fees will all need to be paid out of pocket. Other expenses that get overlooked as well, and this is something that the lawyers deal with at completion, is adjustments for property taxes and utilities. Depending on when you take possession of the home, what time of the year it is, and when those taxes were due, there will be an adjustment one way or the other. So it might actually work in your favor in the sense that you'll get a reimbursement, but typically the seller has already paid, say, the property tax on the home for that year. So you'll have to pay a prorated rate that'll get done by the lawyers as part of the statement of adjustments. Now, I've covered all the fees that go with the offer, and then I've covered our closing costs, but am I missing anything? Here are a couple costs that typically get overlooked when you're purchasing a home. Moving expenses. You've got to pay to move. So most people forget that there's an expense associated with moving. It doesn't matter, even if you get your friends to help you, you still have to buy boxes. There's still costs. You got to buy pizza for your friends, or you're hiring a moving company, which can cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Another expense is often overlooked is utility connection fees. Now, they might charge you to set up your utility bills, depending on what provider you're using. I've seen in British Columbia, we have BC Hydro, where they actually require a deposit, whether it's $500 or $1,000, to set up your hydro account so they know that you're actually going to pay. It basically just goes onto your account, and if for some reason you didn't make the payment, they would take it from the deposit. Now, that's likely only if you've never had an account with them before, but if it still is a cost, it could come at a surprise. We've covered today legal fees, home inspection fees, property transfer tax, CMHC, insurance, moving fees, and utility fees. You also have to think about ongoing maintenance. This could include getting the gutters cleaned, servicing the HVAC system, painting, having the septic tank emptied every few years. We have to make sure that we're budgeting for these items because being a homeowner is a lot of responsibility, and you need to make sure that you have your ducks in a row and that you protect your investment. For more great real estate tips, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. And if you want to learn about how to find cash flowing properties, watch this video here. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in.